Hey, howdy, and welcome to the Big and Bright podcast. As you can see, it's just me again, just Justice James. Nicholas has some family and work issues and school responsibilities, things that matter, but he's pretending this podcast doesn't matter. So if you see Nick, tell him to get back on the show. I'd like to have him here. In small doses, he can be tolerable. Before I get to the actual show, let me just stop right here and say like, subscribe, share, ring the bell, comment, everything that's required on there. Throw it all at the wind. Please do it all. That helps the algorithm, that helps our show get seen by more people. And who knows, some other people may actually like what we have to say. All right, back to the show. Only have two issues because this episode's going to be short, as mine typically are, because I just have some brief comment on a House bill that's making its way up the ranks and a conclusion on a legal case we spoke about in the previous episodes to kind of give you the finality of what happened. So, the first thing I want to talk about is House Bill 2127, what the Dems have called the Death Star Bill. Where is Nick when you need him? He knows all about Star Wars. I don't see the dang things, but he knows about it. I'm sure he had an excellent quip here. Nick? Sorry, nothing. Back to the actual show again. This bill, House Bill 2127, would weaken the power of the state's blue cities and counties, which is, to me, a good thing. It received initial approval by the Texas House by 92 to 55. It still has to be have a final vote and approved, and still has to be approved by the Senate. But it seems like it's going to happen because it's backed by Governor Abbott and some business lobbying groups. The bill's backers argue, I'm just going to do a direct quote of how they said it in this article, which will be in the description. So will the bill, by the way, in its full text. That way you can read yourself. It's 5 pages, not that long. The bill's backers argue it's needed to combat what they call a growing patchwork of local regulations that make it difficult for business owners to operate and harm the state's economy. There you go. That's the reason they're looking at it. That's the reason they're trying to avoid it. They're basically wanting to have one law for everything instead of having small little works. That way, if I go to another county, I don't have to worry about what can or can't I do except for when it comes to maybe zoning. That's fine because zoning is zoned by the city because the city knows where all the stuff is. Anyways, Texas Democrats, of course, because it's backed by Abbott, have claimed this would prevent local communities from responding to their own community's needs. It also says unconstitutional, which is super funny because they also claim it's a cookie cutter and it's a one-size-fits-all, and Texas is way too diverse to allow one law for all. This is the same group of Democrats that flew to D.C. after the abortion thing to break quorum, to try to petition the federal government to make a one-size-fits-all law for abortion for all 50 states. Now, I think someone's not being genuine here, but what do I know? I'm just a citizen, just a regular guy like you. So maybe I have a point, maybe I don't, but it seems kind of funny to me. It seems kind of like you're talking out of both sides of your mouth here. Anyways, Democrats have also warned that if this passes, there will be a flood of lawsuits against cities and locales. Good. If you make a crap law, you should be able to have, as a citizen, I should be able to file a grievance, and that in some form, a lawsuit against you. I don't see the problem with that. That's what our Texas Constitution allows. That's what our United States Constitution allows. If I have a grievance and I have enough to file a suit, I should be able to. And once this goes in, I'm guessing all those blue progressive laws will magically go away overnight. We'll see. Business groups that are backing the proposals because they would prevent the state's more left-leaning cities from enacting the rules the groups believed were harmful to actual businesses. Now, again, like I said, in the description, there will be the full text of the bill. I've read the bill. And it's not a bad bill. I think it's pretty good. It's pretty mild when it comes to how forceful the Democrats, of course, make it seem. I think it's pretty mild. It just kind of backs things up and says, hey, we're reassessing, and this is going to be the law from now on. Some of y'all are just taking it too far. But it is a bad bill if you're a power-hungry commissioner, judge, Clay Jenkins. something like that. So I'm guessing that's who it would affect and make mad more often. It preempts a lot of statutes in Texas law that have already been passed by the legislature. Preempts a locale or local community from basically making a law that supersedes it or directly contradicts it. So that's awesome. The bill, as I mentioned before about lawsuits part, takes away official and qualified immunity for the governments. Now, this is what we would call the teeth of a bill or the consequences. If you break X, then Z will apply. That's what teeth means. And I like this because it also invalidates and takes away certain laws that actually are against the preemption, saying we have full authority in these areas. You cannot make a law against these areas. And if you do, automatically it's invalidated. Can't happen. It has to go through the process of the Texas legislature, like most of our things in Texas go through. Now, just to explain what immunity is, if you don't know, it's usually used by local governments and government agents such as police officers, firefighters, and what have you, from being sued from doing their job. Now, sometimes a law doesn't really, people who are passing a law don't see the secondary effects until it happens. And they see the secondary effects, you can't just go up and sue them saying this, even though on its face was actually good intentions, it happened something bad, therefore you're guilty. No, otherwise nothing would get passed, nothing would get done. It allows for police officers who are making split-second decisions to be immune. It's like, well, looking back in hindsight 2020, you should have done this, should have done that. It's like, yeah, but in the moment, the only information we have is in the moment, and it depends on what that officer had. So immunity can be a good. But recently, cities have been using this immunity for their own ends. Oh, I made a law. Too bad, so sad. You don't like it. Oh, you sue me? Immunity. Look at that. I'm out of court. I'm back at my office. I don't give a crap about you, Mr. Small Man. But, as I said, this bill eliminates it. And if the local government creates a law, like I said, in violation of this bill, it automatically invalidates it, which I actually like because it creates a less stringent grievance process or lawsuit if something is, for instance, against this bill. Now, this, like I said, is good for the little guy because lawsuits are expensive. They have to go through all the rigmarole, especially if you're suing a city. It typically gets kicked out to Fed court. Fed court takes forever to see if they have immunity. And if they have immunity, you're still out a bundle of cash, and then you have nothing to do because they're out. They're immune. Unless it's under this bill. And that takes away all the rigmarole. All the person will have to do is cite to this bill, this statute, and say, actually, Your Honor, blank, blank, blank was the law. It was preempted in this 2127 that was signed, which hopefully it will be. Oh, look at that. They can be sued. And they don't like that because that means they're going to actually start to have to listen to, yes, their own citizens. And that's a tough job to expect out of a politician. But Texas, we're going to do it. The opponents of this bill, of course, cry hypocrisy. They don't know what that word means, as I explained to you about the federal law and the local law, the cookie cutter law. They don't care. They're going to still say hypocrisy against conservatives because they claim it makes a bigger government when the mantra of conservatives is for small, limited government. Now, as you may know, this show is all about federalism, and we enjoy small government, and we want more small government. But this doesn't go against this belief. This bill does not go against that. What this bill does is take away the ability of some local council or commissioners or mayor from enacting some small fringe beliefs onto their citizens. A law that typically would not be able to be addressed in court, as I said, immunity, and can't be voted down because it was voted in by a small handful of people that are on a board and happen to be in the back room deciding all these things without ever issuing anything to the citizens until it's actually decided. This law makes it uniform across the state, which is a good thing. Less chance of getting tricked or random penalties from people who are seeking all these fines and violations for people that they just don't like. You as a local government do not get to decide what Texas statutes and laws you do not like based on your political aisle beliefs. We have a process. It's the Texas Legislature, and you have to go through that process. You don't get to go around it because you think you're king. To allow these laws to exist basically kills any power of the Texas Legislature, which is against our state constitution. As stated earlier, these types of actions would not be voted in by a community. So it wouldn't actually be by local council or local government. It would actually be just an oligarchy in that local government pretending to be small government. Therefore, there is no actual argument that this is not a small government action, or that there's no argument this is a big government action. It is actually more small government. It allows the citizens to have their rights back. This article, the Texas Tribune article is the one I'm referring to. There'll be a few for this subject right here. It points out that business lobbying groups are backing this bill, and they use it as a knock against them. Like, this is just obviously big government, all this, or not big government, big business, all this money, corruption, blah, blah, blah. The reason business groups are for this is because of all the crap they had to go through during COVID. Some cities were allowing, while some others weren't allowing it. After Governor Abbott would expand, even though he shouldn't have ever limited, but he would expand the capacity of certain restaurants and what have you. Some local governments said, I know what you say, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to still restrict it to this or that. No, you don't get to do that. Governor Abbott didn't have the power to do that, but he did anyways. But you certainly don't have the right to do that. If a business wants to be a business, not doing anything actually illegal, like harming people, serving food that's definitely not fit for human consumption, or anything along that nature, you don't have the right to tell them what they can and can't do. I don't like salads. I'd be happy to allow a salad business to be open. I think they're immoral, but they're allowed to have it. Now, like I stated earlier, these same rules should apply across the board, and I shouldn't have to be guessing by county or by city. So this is the reason why I'm actually for this bill. I hope it does get finally passed, and I hope that Governor Abbott signs it, which would be weird if he didn't, because he's the one who's backing it. But you shouldn't be able to do this based on your political affiliations. You should be able to have a business and show any kind of standard. So if any kind of COVID crap pops up again, this bill would prevent local governments from doing all this junk they did with mask mandating, with limiting capacity, with not allowing certain schools to be open. It would limit all that, as it should be. You have a lot of power in a local government, but deciding what you do not like of Texas laws is not one of them. So too bad, so sad. Speaking of local governments taking matters in their own hands against the law, Collin County. If you remember on a previous episode, we talked about Collin County's DA, Greg Willis, and First Assistant DA, Bill Werski, that a lawsuit was filed against them and the Collin County Commissioner's Court. For what? The DA and Assistant DA allegedly sexually harassing women in the office, and the Commissioner's Court not actually investigating anything whenever these grievances were filed. Whoops. Sucks to suck. People end up coming after you. Well, do you remember the weird hugs the DA gave a certain woman where he pressed her really tightly into him, touched her butt, and moaned? Gross. But the assistant DA, who was at a bar with a woman at a work event and constantly trying to look up her skirt. Gross. Remember the allegations of one female employee when they rejected the actual advances of these men, that all of a sudden her workplace was belittled, maligned, she was mistrusted now, she was purposely kept out of the loop. Remember all that? Well, if you don't, now you do. Well, Collin County settled for $1.75 million. The justification was the Collin County Insurance Company was not sure of the cost of litigation if this went to the full length of the whole lawsuit, how much it would cost, and they thought it'd be cheaper to get this out now, which kind of tells me if this dragged out to its finality, there's a good chance all these false allegations, these uncorroborated stories, may have had some merit, and they were like, oh crap, shut it down now, see if we can make him happy. I just wanted to, that's really all the story is. I just wanted to provide some closure, because I know we talked about it in a previous episode, and I want to talk about the settlement that just occurred yesterday, which I believe is going to be the 18th of April. So there you go. And just because you're a powerful local elected official does not allow you to take actions in your own hands and disregard other people's feelings or make them do things that are immoral. I don't really know what else to say. This is horrible. So the settlement, I'm sure the DA is happy it's over. I'm sure there'll be other things coming up later on against him and his wife, who happens to be a judge on that same court. I'm sure this is going to be fun for them. They may not get reelected. Maybe they shouldn't get reelected. I don't know. I live in Collin County. But I bet you those who do live in Collin County noticed that settlement and said, that was our taxpayer money that just got spent out. Maybe we should look elsewhere. Anyways, friends, that's all I have to say today. Like I said, short and sweet. Well, not as short. Look at the time frame right now, a little over 16 minutes. Sorry about that. Anyways, even though the things around you may seem the dark, the stars at night are still big and bright. We'll see you next week.